If you're a college grad student or new grad trying to land that first job, this episode is your shortcut. Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. I'm Kelly Callahan Poe, and today's episode is called Insider Tips to Land Your First Job with Beth Hendler-Grunt. Beth is a recognized thought leader in the college to career space and the author of the book, The Next Great Step, Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad in a Career, which I have read cover to cover, and I have extensive notes for my college-aged sons, which I will push on them during Christmas break. So thank you, Beth, and welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So let's start with there's a huge gap between how ready grads think they are versus how employers see them. What's driving that disconnect?
There's a number of things. I started this 10 years ago, and I think the gap has widened, unfortunately, and it's changed in different ways. But I think a lot of our young adults and our kids always thought that if they follow this prescribed guidance of you go to school, you get good grades, you go to a good college, that the job would be waiting for you when you come out. And the harsh realization is that it's just not that simple or easy as many expected it to be. Very often they think the university promised them on the campus tour that this would be taken care of. And they're realizing after the fact, both students and their parents, that there's a lot more work that needs to be put into it because the rules of the workplace are very different from the rules of academia or how you succeed in school, and the expectations are not aligned. So where many students think they are ready to land a job, barely 50% of hiring managers would agree in terms of them having the right skills and the right preparedness. So it's created this major disconnect between what employers expect and what students think that they're ready to bring. And, how do you then bridge that, which is, the focus of what we do.
Well, on your website, one of the fantastic resources that you offer is 10 insider tips for new grads to get hired. Can we walk through some of these and just have a conversation about each of them?
Absolutely.
So do you want to start with the first one, which is start with skills? Because this one I find to be very fascinating how you position it.
Sure. So very often a lot of families, whether it's the parents or students, will come to me where students think, all right, well, let me just go with what's in front of me, which is the device in their hand and the auto apply, whether it's on LinkedIn or Indeed or Glassdoor or Handshake. It doesn't matter what the platform is. They're like, oh, there's all this technology. It must be a numbers game. It must be, let me get as many applications out there and something will hit. And it's actually completely the opposite. But before you even apply or submit, I often tell students, stop doing that for a minute. What are your skills? What is it that you have that you can offer an employer? Because employers put out a job ad because they have a problem. There's either they're growing or they're changing or they were acquired or somebody left. Like they have a problem to solve and you need to be that solution to that problem. And most students don't understand that. And when they just come out with like, I just want a job and here's my resume. And if you can really express your skills, and I don't mean when I say skills, it's not that you're hardworking or responsible. Those are really good things. Those are attributes. Those are how you do your skill. A skill is something like I have strong analytical skills. I know how to research. I know how to lead a group. I have great interpersonal or communication skills. Those are skills. And if you say you have those skills, then you have to be ready to give an example of how you demonstrated it. It doesn't have to be in a fancy job. It could be, I was the leader on a team project, and this is how I led our group to have success in coming to the outcome. Or maybe you're a great writer and you wrote for the school newspaper 3 times a week, and you talk about your process of how you come up with ideas. So if you say you have a skill, you have to back it up. It can't just be because someone told you that you're great at it. But what we find is that when you figure that out, everything else in the job search gets easier after that because you have clarity about yourself. You also have clarity about looking for jobs and companies that need those skills. So you're not as haphazard, just, I call it spraying and praying. You actually have clarity about what are the organizations or type of roles that need what I know how to do. And you'll notice that I'm not saying it's based on your major. It might not be exactly lined up, and that's okay. But long as you get clarity on your skills and understand what they are, it's so valuable, because now you can answer the question, tell me about yourself, or any interview question for that matter, because you have a story for each of the skills that you're saying that you're competent in. And when you start there, that's when you get real clarity about the kind of roles you want, how to make sure your resume reflects that, your LinkedIn profile reflects that, what you say reflects that. It's kind of the foundation for the entire job search process.
So two things. It's important to understand the difference between hard and soft skills. And when you're selling yourself, you're selling those hard skills. So SEO, SEM, computer programming. Soft skills is something that's really part of your personality. And that's how you communicate. You communicate, I'm a good communicator. I am a leader, those sort of things. So it's important that you focus on those 3 hard skills, correct? I mean, you are suggesting that people focus on 3 skills as they're applying for a new job out of college. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, our guidance is to think about your skills, but I only really want you to think about the top 3. Of course, we do a big brainstorm. I want you to think about everything that you think you're great at. But then I want you to think about this idea, and I teach a concept. It's called, what are your core skills? Meaning, what are those that you are the most competent, most skilled at, and you enjoy doing? And there's the little diagram. I'm so glad you had that, right? You see that circle, because in the center, when you're honed in on core, that's when it gets really clear. When you start doing, well, I can also do this and I can also do that, or a topic I call outfield, right? That's shiny object. That's saying, oh, I see my friend, they went to go be an accountant and they're working in Alaska and they're making a lot of money. Well, does that line up with your skills, of the skills you have and where you want to be geographically? So I think a lot of times students get very distracted by what sounds good for someone else may not be good for you. So that idea that let's keep it simple. I'm all about simplicity because the process is so overwhelming. Focus on your top 3. And you need a story for each, even if it's for your top 2 skills. And that's when you get the clarity and you can talk about yourself with confidence. You know how to focus on the organizations that need your skill set. And when you line that up together, all of a sudden the job prospects become a lot more abundant because you're really meeting a need.
This really breaks it down for students and new grads, and that visual, especially because I'm a visual person, was really like an aha moment. Okay, I can show this graph to my sons and say, do this, focus on that 25%. It's easy to come up with your 3 top skills. Absolutely. Yeah. It may be more challenging to come up with examples of what you did in an internship or a class to explain how you have perfected those skills. But that's part of the job.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into building your network. What percentage of jobs come from referrals?
Over 80% of jobs come from referrals.
Wow.
And I think, we've had a number of things that's happened. I've been doing this for a while. I think young adults, they're always a little intimidated to reach out. They don't want to feel like they're a bother, or they don't feel like they have anything of value to say, or I didn't do anything good enough or strong enough. And that's not true. That's really not true. And now you throw in a pandemic where a lot of our grads now have been in their bedrooms for part of their education and really missed out on a really critical piece of socialization. And now there's like this anxiety around reaching out, whether it's over email. I mean, God forbid a call on the phone. That's like,
I know.
That's
no
the
one
most terrifying.
That's
probably one of the most terrifying things if I said to someone, like, call them. And it's just like total paralysis.
Yeah.
And so now we have even, I'll say, greater fear around things that you would hope that someone in their late teens and 20s is comfortable doing. They just haven't had as much practice. But when all is said and done, I don't care how beautiful your resume is or how perfect your LinkedIn profile is, or if you submit applications to 100 or 1,000 jobs, all of that will not be as useful or productive as networking and talking to someone who's young. You don't have to speak to the VP or the CEO. Speak to a fellow alumni who graduated in the last 3 to 5 years, who's doing an entry role that you aspire to do. they usually are more than happy to speak with you because they were in your shoes too. And they're not too far away from it. They just went through it. And usually they'll give you the real insight of this is what's going on here. This is how I got the job. This is who you should talk to. This is who I can refer you to. Because inherently also what I think a lot of students don't understand is that employers inherently are kind of overwhelmed and a little bit lazy, right? As an employer, when I have to go hire someone, I don't want to review 100 resumes.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to my network that I know and trust and say, do you know anybody that fits this profile? And the only way that you become the name that someone refers is if you've reached out to that person in the past saying, yeah, I just spoke to this amazing student from my same school. Let me refer them to you. And it's as simple as that as to how you get an in to getting a job.
One of the strategies that you recommend is the LinkedIn alumni tool.
Yes, I'm a big
Talk about
fan of that.
a little bit in terms of
Yes, so
how to reach out and who to reach out to.
Yes, absolutely. So I think very often students are like, well, how do I find these people? Now, first, before I even talk about LinkedIn, every university has a portal and a database of alumni. So every student should be asking for access. You're entitled to it. It's free. It's there. So definitely ask for that because I think a lot of students don't even know to ask. But the other piece is I love LinkedIn because if you look at your own profile or you just type in the name of your university, you will then come to your university's LinkedIn profile. Every college has their own profile.
Yeah.
And on that page are a couple of different tabs. It'll say people and companies or about the school. But there's another tab on there that says alumni or people. Sometimes they've changed it. And if you click on that, you have the ability to filter who graduated with the same major as you, who's maybe working in an industry just like you. It shows you what companies they're at, what year they graduated. So all of a sudden you can start filtering. This is all free. You don't even need premium. You can just start filtering, oh, who's doing something with a similar major or a similar interest or is in a city that I want to be in or is at a company that I'm interested in. And you can reach out and send a note saying, like you, I'm a fellow alum. I studied this at the same school. I'm really impressed with what you've done in your career. I'd like to learn more about your career path. Notice that I'm not saying I need a job.
Yes.
Don't ask for a job, right? That's like getting married on the first date.
Yeah.
Just be curious. And I'd love to learn more about your role and what you've done at this company. And do you have, a few minutes to speak, on Monday at 3 or Thursday at 2? Make it really clear and concise. A lot of sometimes your initial messages, based on whether you have premium or not, they might limit it. You can just keep a short note of like, I'd love to, like you, I went to the same school. I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I'd love to connect. Because once you connect, then you have their email address and you can get off of LinkedIn and send them a little bit longer message explaining where you're at and what you hope to achieve in a meeting together. But it's super easy and free, but you have to hit send on the email and not be afraid.
Well, and everyone wants to give advice, right? Especially if they have a connection to you through your university. And you can do that also with your fraternity, your sorority, your business fraternity. There's so many different ways where you already have these built-in connections that you may or may not be realize that you can tap into.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about internships. How important are internships in getting your first job?
Yeah, I talk about internships a lot. I think they're really important in terms of helping you get real world work experience and getting that first job. And employers more and more say, I like where you went to school and I like your classwork, but I'd really like to see what you've done in an internship. But I know for a lot of students, especially during pandemic, you couldn't get one. It's very competitive. I think there's a statistic that over 8 million students want an internship each year, but only 50% are able to get one. We have definitely a problem right now where the demand significantly outweighs the supply. And I want to send the message of an internship is always good. But I think the definition of an internship can come in a couple of different ways. Now, a lot of students think, well, I want to be in a formal, internship that has part of potentially like a rotation program or something that will be a feeder into a full-time job and with some of these big companies. And that is a great opportunity. Those are highly, highly competitive. So if you're aiming for finance and consulting, the recruiting for those start 2 years ahead of time.
Yeah.
They start at the end of your freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, and you have to be really clear, directed, and connected to the people who are in those roles. But that's just a small percentage. I think sometimes students get hung up on the name of, oh, I have to only work for Deloitte or EY or Goldman Sachs. Like there's thousands of other companies to work for. And I really encourage students to think about what are the skills you have and what kind of skills do you want to gain. Don't worry so much about the name of the company or that the profile. Think about what can you acquire, and it can come in different ways. You can do it over a summer. There's a company that I really like. I know the CEO, it's called Parker Dewey, where they do micro-internships where you can do a project-based work over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a week and work with big companies who are looking for projects to get done. I think that's a great way, especially if you don't have a lot of time, or maybe some of the internships you look for were unpaid and you can't afford that. So these are all paid, but they can be done over Christmas break or, for a short time in the spring. So that's another really good way to get an internship. I also encourage students to think local, especially if you're a freshman or sophomore. It's going to be very hard for a big name company to hire you. They just like to hire juniors as a lot of their rules. So I always say, think local. Think about what's the local coffee shop or accounting firm or legal firm or someone in your area that needs help. And it could be help in a whole different ways, whether it's HR or digital content creation, anything. To me, it's more important that you get the experience than it is about the name. But these are things that you have to seek out. And as much as your school will have a career fair or resources, definitely go use all those resources. But if you go to school in California and you live in New York City and a lot of the companies are all on the West Coast and you want to be in the East Coast, you're going to have to do this on your own. You're going to have to take that initiative, which is why I love networking through LinkedIn, talk to fellow alum, talk to upperclassmen, talk to people who are seniors who might be in your fraternity or sorority and ask them, how'd you get that internship? Who do you know? What do you think I should do? There's some people inherently in your own network that you don't even realize to leverage, as well as leveraging professors. I'm a big proponent of getting to know your professor. They very often know about internships. People reach out to them saying, I am looking for someone. Do you have anyone in your class? So not only will it help your grade, I think, but also just to know about potential opportunities. So I think there's lots of ways to gain that experience, just trying to make sure it happens.
Well, let's move on to the next one, which is your 10 out of 10 rule. Can you talk about that one?
Sure. So the 10 and 10 rule is, again, another way to bring a very simple approach to a very overwhelming process, because students will think, wow, I probably need to apply to 100 jobs, or how do I even start? I don't know which company. I don't know what organization. So again, try to create simplicity. Break it down as you get to pick. Don't go to the job board. Don't see what's available. I want you to think about what your skills are. And if you could choose, what are the top 10 companies that are of interest to you? Which ones have you seen out there that look interesting? You'd like to learn more. And then at those companies, again, I love LinkedIn as a free tool. Find 10 people across those companies who are doing a role that you aspire to. It should be an entry-level role. And it can be using leverage of your alumni network. It could be someone who has a role that did not go to the same school, but someone that you want to reach out to learn more. And I find when you start with 10 people, 10 companies and 10 people as a starting point of, this is who I am going to reach out to, this is who I'm going to network with, it builds momentum, because at the end of every conversation, it shouldn't just be, hey, do you have a job for me, right? There's a real framework of how you do that. It should be, tell me about your role. I'd love to learn more. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my skills and what I'm looking for. And at the end of the conversation, it should be, is there anyone else that you think I should speak with, or anyone else that you think you could refer me to based on my skills and what I'm looking for? And so each conversation should yield another 1 to 2 more names that you're going to add to your list. So that initial list of 10 becomes 20 and 30 and 40. And now you have this network, a list of people that you've connected with, even if they didn't have an opportunity at that time. It could be Would you be willing, if I came back to you and gave you an update in a few weeks, would you be willing to mentor me? People love to help, but they need to be asked.
Yeah.
And you need to be, direct and asking that, and also showing value and that you're following up. And that's another big thing. It's, once you have these things, I might even be covering another, is the follow-up. It's not just you're speaking to these people one time. It's following up every 7 days or every 7 to 10 days, especially if they said, yes, I would like to introduce you to so-and-so, or I know someone I want to talk to you with. And it's also following up with value of, I read this, right? How do you know these 10 companies? Let's go back. How do you even know what 10 companies to pick? You can't do it in a bubble. You need to read the news or trade journals that are in your field. And by the way, it can be fed to you. You can set a Google alert. It'll automatically come to your inbox every week. You can set an alert with ChatGPT. It'll send you information. I mean, there's so much automation. You just have to tell it what you want, but you have to be reading and paying attention and watching and listening, so you can also add value when you network with these people.
I think that's a very strong approach to go at it. The thing that I did, obviously I'm much older and didn't have any of these resources, was I focused on locations. I feel like that's another area. If you have a specific major, where are the top jobs in your major? And that varies by year, it varies by industry. So this podcast, for example, focuses on advertising and marketing. So where are most of those jobs? But not only location, you also need to look at, do you believe in the products and services that these companies are selling? Because having worked at a variety of different companies, if you don't fit with that particular brand, or you wouldn't purchase those products or those services, then you're going to have a really hard time selling them or working for them. So a lot of other different components to think about, but I do think location is another one to think about. And the other thing that I tout is, at least my own children, and when I do speak to colleges, is risk. There's one time in your life that you should be taking risk, and it's now. So don't stay in your hometown. Look at job opportunities around the country in places where there's more opportunities, and don't be afraid to take that risk, because 10, 15 years down the line, you're not going to be able to take as many risks. That's my 2 cents.
That's a really, really good point. I'll just comment on 2 things there. So one, I do see more and more students want to feel that they are aligned in values when they look at a company, in terms of its mission and what it's doing. I feel like young adults are very aware in terms of, what is this organization focused on, or what does it contribute to? Do I align with that as a value set? So I do see that as well. And I agree with you. This is a time to take risks. The only thing I would say is that it's in such a crazy economy that it's very expensive to be financially independent fully in your first job.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more students that even though you might get hired, you still might need family support to help with living expenses. Yes. And you need to evaluate that. Like, can I afford to live in New York City for my first job? Maybe you need to live in the suburbs of, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, to kind of, afford that. Or there might be better places across the country where you can take the leap. I totally agree. And I agree. It's the one time where you're not held down by necessarily mortgage or children, and you really can explore. And I wish more students would sometimes they're just so afraid. They're just so afraid. And I think another key piece is that we do have a mental health crisis. And I can't underestimate that enough, is that we really have young adults who, they're not the same as they were 5 years ago, or the young adults that were prior to them, whether through the pandemic, the economy, all of the things that happened on campus in the last few years. And they're fragile. So, I think all of that needs to be balanced.
Yeah, it's hard when you feel like, to a certain extent, you're competing with your friends at school, and one gets an internship or a full-time job and you don't, but you don't realize that it's not apples to apples. They may be in a completely different field. They may be in a completely different location. So it is hard to compare.
Yeah.
Well, let's dig into your resume is a tool, not a ticket.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I'm going to say, if I had a nickel for every person that said, if you can just fix my resume, or if I just fixed this on my resume, or I just worked on this, or And I'm not discounting the importance of a resume. It is a tool in your toolbox in looking for a job, along with a lot of other tools, such as your LinkedIn profile, such as how you talk about yourself, but it's not going to save you. And especially as a college student, your resume alone will not get you hired. And I think that's a rude awakening for a lot of college students thinking like, well, I did all these things, or I got involved on campus, or I had these internships, and I'm sending out my resume and nobody's responding, or I'm applying and I'm not getting any responses. And the reason that is because, first of all, you're young, you're supposed to be young, and there's no way you're going to have this magical, incredible experience as a young person. And that's appropriate. You're still growing and learning, which means you have to do other things to help yourself get found, like speaking to live people over the phone, over video, in person, all the things that are fearful, that make you uncomfortable. And yes, of course, when they see how great your resume and it lines up to what you say, it helps complete the puzzle. But it's not the thing that will get you hired. It's just one piece.
So the stat that I read is that employers spend an average of 6 seconds looking at a resume. What are the top things that they're scanning for, assuming it's not an AI, which is a separate topic?
Yeah. So assuming a live person is scanning your resume, yes,
Yeah.
on average, they spend 6 seconds looking at it. And the top things they look for is metrics. They want to see what percent or what number or what volume of things you worked at, organized, researched, executed on, because they are looking so quickly that they know numbers stand out. Like, oh, I see that you increased, it could be a club. I increased retention or new members in my club by 10%. Oh, wow, this person probably knows how to sell. I was able to optimize this coding platform and find our risks, and we reduced our risk profile by 15%. Oh, wow, this person has an amazing attention to detail. They know how to code, or they know how to use Excel. Like, they're very, very quickly scanning and then having real clarity about your skills that line up. So whatever skills you say you have, they need to be in that resume too, and along with metrics. And I think when you can quantify what you've done, it makes it very easy for an employer to be like, I see these 3 metrics. Let's talk to this person. Again, that's assuming a live person is scanning it. But I think metrics are really key. Just being really concise and not overly wordy. I see sometimes kids they're like throwing so much stuff at it. It's like very heavy and hard to read. So I'd rather, be clear, bullets, concise, not too, don't make the font a 9 font where someone will say my age, who can barely read it. I'd rather don't
Give me a
it all
12.
out.
Give me a 12.
Right. And then I'll say too, put your most relevant experience. You don't have to put every single thing. If I'm all for part-time jobs, summer jobs, scooping ice cream, it's amazing. But if you are an engineer and you've done coding projects and you've done engineering internships, and then you're saying that you scooped ice cream at the ice cream shop, that's great, but you could probably take that off.
Yeah.
Tell me what's most relevant for the kind of job that you're doing, unless you did something really unique at that role, or you're trying to fill space. Don't try to fill the space. I'd rather there's a fine balance. Don't overdo it with stuff that's not relevant to the type of job that you want.
How similar should your resume be to your LinkedIn profile?
In my opinion, the resume should be identical in terms of how it's reflected on LinkedIn in your experience section. But the beauty of LinkedIn is that it gives you another place to write your about section, which I love because a resume doesn't have that. It also gives you a headline, which a resume does not have. So to me, those are the opportunities where you can really share more detail about why you're interested in this, what made you interested in this potential role, and what are the skills that you really, or types of roles that you want to pursue based on that. So it gives you this free form way of expressing yourself that a resume doesn't allow you to do. So the LinkedIn should absolutely duplicate exactly each of the experience components.
Yeah.
But you should have a good headline and a strong about section. Don't leave those blank.
Okay. And this leads in really well to quality over quantity. And I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk. I've got other couple comments about one click, LinkedIn, and AI. So let's kind of lead into that
Yeah.
direction, if you don't mind.
Yeah. hmm So, okay, just in general, like quality over quantity, is that your, okay. So kind of goes back to what I said earlier, that there's this thinking that if I just do more, I apply to more, I send out my resume to more, something will stick. And it's not a numbers game. And I think that's a hard reality for people thinking that, well, if I just keep loading it in, I should get something. And you might get something, but it probably won't be either real, it could be a scam, or it won't be aligned with what you are actually good at. And I really want you to employers want you to be more clear about what you want, because when they see that you're honed in on, these are my skills and this is the kind of field that I want to bring it to, now they know what to do with you or where to refer you to. Versus when I have students and grads who go into an interview and they say, I really want this job and I'll do anything and I'll do it for anyone. That's not useful.
Yeah.
That's not useful because I don't know what you're good at. I don't know where to put you. When you're clear about what you have to offer, and when you start to get clear, going back to that 10 and 10 of the kind of industries and the type of companies and the kind of roles, it starts to repeat, because it starts to be in a very, one person knows another, and this is how you get yourself into a more, specific role. And employers like to know that you are focused and targeted and have clarity about what you want. And that makes you appealing to them.
So one of the challenges, for example, on LinkedIn is they offer you the opportunity to do a one-click apply, which is there's no opportunity to differentiate yourself. There's no opportunity to take your resume and update it so it relates to that particular job description. And there's no way to send a cover letter. Are you against these types of tools that do one click?
For college grads and college students, yes. I don't think it's a good use of time. You think that the one click that sends you to all these people is actually going to yield results. But I can tell you, I have spoken to hundreds and hundreds of students who say I do this and they don't get a good result.
Yeah.
So I know it's very misleading. Now, I'm not saying if you're a mid-career or different, you have a unique skill set, but it's not really, I feel like in general, that's not how they're misleading you with how it works. It's not how it works. It's good for them because they have companies paying them to be on the platform. So, they're a business too. You have to put everything, they're a business, even though they're a free resource to it, they're a business as well. And that easy apply and that easy click is actually not in your benefit. It's only for them. They're the one who are LinkedIn benefits, not the employee, not the one who's applying.
It's nice to hear that flat out. Well, what about the AI trackers? Because we also hear that the employers themselves are using AI to scan the resumes. And so most of the resumes never actually make it through to the hiring manager because they're supposedly using AI scanners. Is this the case, A? And B, from an entry-level graduate perspective, do their resumes need to be redone based on keywords that are appropriate to that particular job descriptions that fit for the AI scanners? Because that takes you down a whole nother loop.
Great question. So I have spent a good part of this year studying, reading, understanding AI, how students use it, how I use it for my business, what I'm doing with it. And here's where I'm at. And I've also had the opportunity to speak with multiple hiring managers who solely do college and campus recruiting at big companies like Morgan Stanley and Wells Fargo and New York Life and all kinds of organizations in tech, finance, manufacturing. And it's interesting. It does vary. But I'll call AI filtering the same as like ATS, which is automated tracking system, which companies have been using for years to sort through all of the resumes. The same way they use one-way interviews on HireVue, where they scan it and see whether you say the right keywords. So in the end, unless you have, I go back, not as a young adult, you're just not going to have all the criteria that's needed. But it's kind of interesting. A couple of things that happened recently. So a lot of these tech companies were using AI to scan for incoming candidates. And then they realized that candidates were using AI to apply. And then they had AI reading the resumes, and then they had no good result.
Yes.
So both Cisco and Microsoft recently backed off and made a declaration saying we're no longer using AI to scan resumes. We're actually using people because we weren't getting good results.
Yeah.
So
no one's getting hired.
No one's getting hired. No one's getting hired. And the other term that I love that has come about is that human thought and human review is now considered the luxury, right? Because you are the ultimate person who would be hiring these people. And people realize that, wow, if I really want to get good people, I need to have people on the other end doing it. So as much as you think AI or stuffing with the right keywords or putting all the right information, I'm going to go back. People hire people. And until our universe is eliminated of people, which right now that's not the case, you need to connect with people to get a job. It's all, to me, a huge distraction to think that AI will, even like, trust me, employers know when AI wrote your resume. Do not use AI to do that.
Yeah.
They can tell immediately how robotic it looks and how clean and too perfect. Like that's not a person. And making those relationships. So, yes, I think we're all being a little bit misguided and putting a little too much trust in the technology. It's not going to save you.
Knowing that, has the cover letter had a resurgence these days?
Well, I think, people write their cover letters on AI too. And I understand that. I think if AI knows you enough, or if here's my opinion about, all these letters or cover letters, that you always have to write it. You have to write it yourself first with your brain, with the difficulty. And then if you want to finesse a sentence or two, yeah, sure, throw it into chat. Help me say the sentence more concisely. But don't lead with AI to write your cover letter. Don't lead with AI to write it yourself and then go by like bullet by bullet or line by line to get a little bit tighter. I really like that for like grammar and fixing it or being more concise. I think when employers ask for a cover letter, I think you do it. Usually the question is, should I write a cover letter? Should I not? Because again, similar to that about section on LinkedIn, it's your way to add additional color about yourself that your resume can't show. Maybe your resume doesn't show why you had the gap or why you maybe took a extra summer to do coursework instead of this, or why. What I love about the cover letter is it's your chance to tell the employer what you know about them and why you think your skills align to them. Your resume can't do that. In the cover letter, you can say, I am so impressed with this acquisition or how you've made these changes and what I've been following about your organization. And here's why I think I could help you to be more successful. That's powerful in a cover letter, but you can't write in a resume. And that's the same kind of conversation you want to have in your interview.
Love it. Just a couple more questions. You say that college services and career fairs are underutilized gold mines. Can you comment on that?
Yes. So it was funny. I think you made a comment earlier, but about taking risk. But here's my comment about career services and career fairs and on-campus networking. When you are in college, this is the only time in your entire life that employers are coming to look for you. The only time. I mean, unless you do something really amazing when you get older. But for the most part, that will never happen again. And unfortunately, students don't realize that. And I understand they are trying to manage adjusting to college, their social life, going to school. Sometimes the career fairs are right when you have a class. But it's a regret that I hear over and over again from students who graduated saying, I should have used more of the campus resources. I didn't realize, or I thought it wasn't going to be helpful, or my friend said it wasn't good, so I didn't go.
Yeah.
But there's so many areas to that. And look, let's be honest. Some career services are good. Some are not so good. I'm not going to, but you have to at least give it a shot. But there are employers who are actually coming on site to meet you in a career fair, in a networking session. And I've spoken with people who run these, who represent companies at these career fairs. They're like, we love to see the same student year after year, because to me, it shows a pattern of interest and commitment. And I want to see you the year after. And I also tell students that you should start going as a freshman. And freshmen will say, well, why would I go to a career fair? I barely have figured out how to find, my class from my dorm. And the number one reason why freshmen and sophomores should go to career fairs is because you get to practice and it's low risk. You can try it out. You can practice introducing yourself. You can see what it's like. You can see what it's like when all the people are waiting online. You can see how people are dressed, how they have a portfolio, how to act professional. Just practice going to some of the tables that don't have a long line and introducing yourself, because now when it really matters, you're like, I've been here before. I know how this goes. And now I feel more confident. I feel more prepared. I know how to be ready for this.
I love it. My sons have gone to career fairs, but never to the career center. So that's something that I will steer them towards. So my last question is, you've helped over 1,000 grads. What is the common thread among the ones who succeed quickly?
Here's the common thread of when a student will succeed in getting an internship or the job and the ones who struggle. Those that have tried to find a job on their own and applied with Easy Apply and fixed the resume and has done all the things that they thought they were supposed to do, and they still don't have a job, those are the students that I know we can help, because they've suffered the pain and the disappointment of it not going the way they thought. So when they are finally ready to say, you know what, I'm ready for a new approach. I'm ready for a new way, because whatever I thought and whatever people told me, it doesn't work. So when I get that student who's ready to embrace what we are guiding, which might feel a little different, it might feel a little uncomfortable at times, when they follow through exactly what we tell them to do, they land the job. And I'm not a recruiter and I'm not a headhunter, and I don't place them in jobs. I give them exactly what they need to do to be successful to land the first job and the second and the third. So it's all of the components that help you throughout your career. But I find that you have to be ready and open to hear the advice. If you feel like you haven't given it a shot yet, or your parents are telling you what to do, or you feel you just want to do it on your own, go for it. But there's a readiness of when you're really ready to hear someone else give you the guidance. And I think that's what is the difference between someone who really is successful in our program versus someone who felt forced. Now we really try to vet that. We tell parents, like, you can't sign your kid up. I have to speak to them. Like, I want to make sure they want it. But sometimes people, lie and whatever. But those who are really ready to like kind of see a new way of approaching it, and this whole concept of skills, I think that's a big, big eye opener for a lot of students. When I say stop applying for like the first 2 weeks that we're working, don't apply to a job. They're like, what do you mean I'm not applying to a job? And this whole concept of just getting to know yourself. I think when you get clarity on who you are and what you want, you come across, I actually say we're in the confidence building business. You come across confident because you know what you want and you know what you're going to say, and you've done your homework on the company and you know it. You just have to know you're the subject. The test is on you. You just got to figure out the right way to say it. And we kind of help pull that out of them. And I think those students who really embrace the approach, those are the ones who get hired.
Beautiful. Well, along with your book, The Next Great Step, and your website, nextgreatstep.com, you have many resources that I'm going to mention because I really dug deep to look and see what you offer. You have a college to career roadmap that gives you advice by year, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. What are the specific steps and things that you should be doing? You have the 10 insider tips for getting hired, which we talked about here today. You have a LinkedIn and a resume checklist, all sorts of wonderful resources, but your best resource is how I found you, which is on Instagram, where you do daily videos that are just fantastic and very helpful. So please follow Beth on Instagram. I'll include her information in the transcript. Her videos are great. You can listen or watch this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or on twomarketingmoms.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and thanks for joining.